Let's talk about the situation in West Asia. Heino Klink is the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for East Asia. Mr. Klink is joining us from Warsaw, Poland. Thank you, sir, for making time for us, and welcome to the show. Why does the U.S. seem tongue-tied on the escalation in West Asia, only issuing statements of "we are watching" or "we are observing"? And it seems the U.S. is silently backing the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu and Hezbollah.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And as your introductory piece articulated very well, it appears as if Washington's influence with the Netanyahu government is limited at best. I think Prime Minister Netanyahu realizes that he has a window of opportunity right now, both from an operational perspective vis-a-vis Iran's proxy forces, to take the fight to those proxy forces, take the offensive in order to make some operational gains, and strategically as well to reset the playing field, and as well strategically and perhaps politically with its relationship with the Biden administration. Prime Minister Netanyahu realizes that with the upcoming U.S. presidential election, he's not going to get any overt political support from Biden, so he might as well do what he thinks is necessary operationally to put Israel's enemies on their back heels.
Mr. Klink, let me ask you this. What will be the consequences for the region and also the United States if Iran decides to join the confrontations and they actually follow their leaders, who is Ali Khamenei's vengeful rhetoric?
Well, there is certainly a risk of escalation. Obviously, if Iran enters the fight, and I would say if Iran enters the fight overtly and directly, because this fight, whether it's the Hezbollah's attacks on Israel, Hamas's attacks on Israel, the Houthis' attacks on Israel, they all have a connection back to Tehran. So Iran is at a minimum indirectly involved already. If they actually launch direct kinetic strikes on Israel, it is to be expected that the Israelis will not only react, but they will escalate, because the Israelis, based on their military strength, have escalation dominance. I believe that the Iranians will react in a way so that they can tell their own populace and their proxies in the regions that they did something vis-a-vis Israel. But I think the Iranians realize that they are at a distinct disadvantage militarily against Israel. And of course, they realize if they do launch a successful military attack against Israel, that the United States government, regardless of who the president is, will come to Israel's aid.
Over the past weekend, we had world leaders, calling for a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, but that is not seemingly happening. We also had the United States saying that even though Israel has the right to defend itself, the possibility of a ceasefire is not there yet. And Israel is insisting that to deal with this, the only way to deal with all this is through military action. What's your view on all this?
Well, all this is complicated. All this is complex and has been for generations now. I think that on the heels of the Hamas attacks, which in 6 days we will mark that very, very painful anniversary, I believe that the Netanyahu government is trying to reset the chessboard, if you will, in the Middle East and reestablish deterrence. The absolute failure of intelligence, Israeli intelligence last year that led to that catastrophic attack gave pause to the Israelis themselves, in that they thought that they could deter such a cataclysmic strike. And obviously the deterrence failed on that day. The Israelis now are resetting the chessboard to reestablish deterrence, to ensure its enemies realize that there will be a significant cost imposition for anyone that strikes Israel. And we've seen that in its overwhelming military operations in Gaza, and more recently we've seen it by the spectacular success, is the only way you can call it operationally, of basically dismantling all of Hezbollah's leadership and command structure.
Okay, I've been talking to former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for East Asia. His name is Heino Klink. Mr. Klink, thank you very much for giving us time and for talking to WION World as One today.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.